healing is a big thing for a lot of people, and I think probably everybody in the planet at some point in their life has to go through it. It's part of our growth, right? No pain, no gain, I guess is the old saying. For me, I've had a pretty disruptive journey. Not as bad as some, but again, it's our perspective on things, and for me, it's relative. I had a very painful upbringing. I didn't get a lot of stimulation. I was always behind. Things that I had to deal with in school. I got sick once, which kept me out of school for 6 months. And then I was in an accident when I got later in life, which kept me out of school. So I was always behind, always felt socially inept, and was always picked on, and always felt like I didn't belong. And one fine summer day when I got sick from drinking some tainted water and had to stay home, my mother got me a guitar. And that began my whole journey into healing that I didn't science out. I didn't approach the instrument with thinking I would be healed, but just sitting there and feeling like I'm part of something was a healing process for me. Yeah, so my name is Don Alder. I'm from Vancouver, BC, Canada. And I'm here today to kind of share some of my thoughts that maybe resonate with you. We all have our own personal journeys. But when to start off, when I start thinking about things like being lonely or loneliness, they have quite a bit different meaning to me. For me, being alone is actually not such a big problem because that's how I kind of grew up. I was by myself. My father died when I was quite young, at about age 4. And my mother only had grade 6 education, and she had to try to take care of me in Montreal. So like normal children, I didn't get a lot of stimulation, and that's nothing against my parents. We just were very poor at the time. But that isolates you a bit. And I know that when I got to school, that I was a bit socially inept because I didn't have the usual, tools, communication tools like other kids did. Being alone for me over my years and period of development as a guitar player, I'm actually happy to be alone. My best moments are when I'm with my guitar, trying to create something in the universe. As for being lonely, I do feel that too. I mean, it's, being around people is very important. It helps with your social development, and it really helps you feel connected to the world. And while I've had some of the problems feeling connected to the world because of my earlier incidents, I do understand that it's very important to be social. Humans are social creatures. And so I do love going out to settings where there's lots of people. I don't always interact, but I love observing, watching. And when you share thoughts with friends or not friends, you learn a lot of different things. Since I've been touring as an artist, I get to meet a lot of fascinating people. And what I find staggering to me is that people come to my shows and they feel touched and they feel I have something special to offer. And when I get to talk and learn about them, we're talking to engineers that are developing carbon fiber wings for aircraft and skills that I could never even dream about having, but they're willing to interact with me. So I get to learn a lot. So yeah, loneliness and being lonely, two different things, but I love both, and both need to be explored by every individual. We all have our own paths to cross, and we each deal with it differently. Home. So when I think what it's like to be where home is, I remember listening to a Frank Zappa album, and one of the ladies was traveling on the bus with him, and she said, "Home is where the heart is." And I think that does apply in my case because I travel so much that you have to make home where the heart is. No matter where you go, there's phenomenal people, phenomenal places to stay. So yeah, home is where the heart is. But do I do love getting home to my own bed and sinking in and, getting into some lazy habits? Absolutely. So I would sit with this guitar, and I couldn't read or write music. We were too poor to do that. But I was able to kind of put colors on black and white notes, and I would discover these cool little, sounds, and it made my heart bountiful. And whether I was creating something unique or not didn't matter to me. It was just me present in that moment where I felt like I was part of the universe. And that kind of kept developing. Then I kept getting these little musical gifts given to me, and I would develop them, and I ended up as as a songwriter or a composer. Now, I've never considered myself as a true musician or a professional musician or a true composer, but I've always considered myself and have been proud of feeling as an artist. And as an artist, you get to break all the rules. And that's what's allowed my heart to kind of heal and become a little bit fuller, because I felt so isolated, and playing with the instrument just made me feel special, that I had something to offer. And I think that's my journey. I think everybody goes through their own way of finding things, and I'm sure some musicians will resonate with what I've just said, but we all have our challenges, and we all find different ways of healing, and I think that's important, and nothing to be ashamed of. That makes your heart grow, and by healing, you end up learning more about loving and and being more compassionate to others as well. When I think about, music and love and the relationship between the two, well, there's the instrument version of love, and then there's the human-to-human version of love. And I gotta say, the instrument one is one that I'll always have in my heart. My deepest, darkest moments, all my different very personal moments have been with the guitar. I've not fully done that with a human yet. So the love with an instrument is complicated still. It's frustrating at times when you can't achieve what you want, but it's very simple. Human-to-human love is a very complicated thing, and you have to be willing to work at it. And I have not had the opportunity to do that yet, but my own relationship with music has been very, very deep love, and it's helped me to heal. So, and to be empathetic towards others, and a fuller feeling of life. Music has a lot to offer. When it comes to music, I've always suggested to people that if they're going to get involved with it and want to do something with it, that you need to love what you're doing. Because if you're going to continue with music, especially with guitar, it's very simple to learn 3 chords. It takes a lot of time, and it's very consuming and very boring to get good at it. And the only way you progress through that is if you have love of what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just not going to be interested in doing it. So then, when I think about what personally inspires me as a musician, it's different events, it's seeing different bands, it's all sorts of little triggers. Seeing a person smile in a certain way, and though I might not recognize it at the second, at that point in time when I'm trying to compose music, those little things that happen during the day usually always come back into the music in some shape or form. But as growing up, I listened to a lot of different styles of music, and when I hear my music come back, there's no question I can hear bits and pieces of songs that I remember from the past. So I think inspiration comes from a lot of places, especially from ice cream. That really helps too on a bad day. So when it comes to writing music, there's a lot of different approaches. You can sit there and just try to science it out, or you can do what I do. It's like a little kid banging on a piano at 8 o'clock in the morning, driving everybody crazy, waiting for 3 little notes to come together that makes you go, wow, where did this come from? And then you kind of build it into a song. And so in that process of going forward, you're exploring, you're making mistakes with all sorts of things, and you're working on colors to make it kind of express itself. And then you kind of try to think, well, where did all this come from? So I have a few thoughts on that. One is just messing around. You get like a little kind of cartoon music idea, and you can develop it. But I think, you're also drawing on from things in the past. So for example, I'll be playing along and another little lick will pop in, and I realize, oh, that sounds like something I did with a Bruce Cockburn thing or a Led Zeppelin thing or something I did in the past. So I think a lot of your past influences and experiences start to come into play when you're writing something and you're doing it freely from the heart. If you're doing it on paper, it's a whole different process. So you can sit down there and write a whole song on paper and play it note to note, and to me that's playing a song. But when you're creating from just pure desire and inspiration from your being present in the moment, I think that's when you start coming up with some very cool things. But that's just my personal journey and my thought on it. I'm sure there's a lot of different ways to do it. So. when I grew up, I had to go through a lot of healing, and to current day, I'm still healing, and music has been a big part of that for me. And learning how to, be with good people and accept their help has also been a healing thing for me. But along that journey, I ended up sort of helping others with their healing without being scientific about it. It just became a natural thing. And I think why is because that when I was healing, I learned about humiliation. I had to deal with, not feeling part of the world and hurting. And I think that makes you empathetic and compassionate. And then when you see others in that same situation where they're hurting, you just want to help. That's a human thing to do, right? And I think when you've got all those things, you're a little bit more sensitive when you do see somebody hurting. So that's been a big part of my life. And the way I fell into it is that when I was a young guy in school, I met a name by the guy of Rick Hansen. And this time in my life, I was just kind of starting to play more guitar to try to feel part of the world. But I got involved with sport to try to be like all the other boys, right? And it turned out we was playing basketball. It was in junior high, and I was like the worst guy in the basketball team. And I met this guy, Rick Hansen, who wasn't the best, but the player. But what happened is that the coach picked him to be the team man, or the team guy, or what's the captain of the team. And so what I observed from Rick at that time, now this is me looking back, writing the story, not me knowing the story at the time, is that Rick would spend a lot of time with me with my skills, and I could never understand why, because the good players would always hang out with the good players, and the not so good players were kind of ostracized or pushed off to the side. So I was this guy that was really good hanging out with me, and because he did that, we became really, really good friends. But when I look back, I kind of go, perhaps that was a sign of what leadership is. I don't know if he was empathetic or he just needed to realize that you have to fix the weak link of your team to have a stronger team. So maybe that's what it was, maybe it wasn't. But this led to a powerful friendship because he didn't give up on me. So what happened is that he invited me to go on a fishing trip with him. And when we were coming back, we had a bit of a dispute with the main driver, so we decided to hitchhike. And as we were coming back home, we were in the back of a pickup truck, and we were on gravel road, and the guy wasn't familiar with the roads, and one thing led to the next, where the pickup started fishtailing and then started rolling. And now he was like an old Ford pickup with a box in the back filled with furniture and stuff. And so as the truck started to flip, I was on the high side, so I rolled down a gully. The truck rolled after me and stopped, so I was lucky. But Rick was dropped on the inside, so he was dropped right on the ground, and he ended up with a broken back. So he was paralyzed. And so then we went to the hospital real quick, and they took him off to Vancouver, and I stayed in Williams Lake, but we kept in touch. And then when he came back to Williams Lake, we resumed our friendship. But this time he was in a wheelchair, as he was paralyzed for life, paralyzed from the waist down. And Rick was now going through a very tough time because he was an incredible athlete, and now he felt like he didn't belong to the world. So he and I were real close buds, and that beginning of the process where he would fall down, I'd help him up. We'd go to a restaurant, and people would try to order for him. Just showed you how backwards we were back then. So seeing all these things play in his life and what he had to deal with, and then I looked back at my life and I went, God, I don't really have hardly nearly the problems he does. So it really kind of was a boast in the arm for being more empathetic and being observant of other people's situations. And so what happened is we kept good friends, and in 1985 he decided to go around the world in a wheelchair to make a difference in the lives of others by demonstrating that removing barriers, people with disabilities could reach their full potential. And this trip took 2.5 years. He wheeled 24,901.55 miles, or 40,000 kilometers. We went to 34 countries, raised $26 million, became a Canadian hero. But what it was a catalyst for change around the world, and I don't think a lot of people know this. And all of a sudden, you had curbs cut for sidewalks now, so people with their wheelchairs could go down. And there was incredible transformation that started to happen. But because I was on the road, I got to learn a lot about wheelchairs. And which got me selected to be on the Canadian Paralympic team in 1996 and 2000 as the equipment technician. And so I ended up hanging around with a lot of people that were in wheelchairs. And in my music life, I ran into 2 quadriplegics. Now, these are guys that had barely even moved their arms, and they were starting to try to start a music program. And they had to find adapted devices so they could learn how to play, right? And so I became part of the band Spinal Cord, and we did a song called Mary, which there's a video for on YouTube. And so I was around a lot of different people with lots of types of different disabilities, and then ended up in a job that was selling wheelchairs. So daily I was exposed to people with problems 10 times the amount of what I would ever have to deal with. So it was very humbling and a good learning experience. But during that whole process, I was helping people fulfill their dreams without even recognizing it. And now that I have recognized it, today I'm working with various nonprofits to to empower kids through music. Kids that are challenged or don't have access to instruments and stuff like that. We have a program in Vancouver called Horizon School of Music, and so I continue that. And why do I do that? Because it helps this, and it keeps me healing too. I still go through lots of problems. My past catches up with me every day. There's days where I feel like I don't belong and shouldn't belong, and then I start thinking of, man, that guy that's paralyzed from the waist, like the neck down, and he's painting pictures, murals upside down with a brush in his mouth. Like, wow, you can't. Your broken pieces start coming together a little bit more glue when you see people having to deal with that. So I played for guitar for a long time, and I have to think about how that relationship of music goes along with my body. And I gotta say, if it has been healing my body, then if there was no music, I probably wouldn't be on the planet right now, because I'm sure it's done a lot of healing. But in reality, what I have noticed is my body is not connected to my music, and so I find that as I get older with playing, because maybe I didn't have proper habits, I'm getting wrist injuries and shoulder injuries and stuff like that, and I'm grinding my teeth. So when I play, I'm like gritting, and I'm going, well, how is that possible? Because I'm playing beautiful music and I'm grinding my teeth. So I don't think my body has caught on to at least my moving parts is not caught on to the healing part of the music. But what has healed is definitely the heart. And, music has given me so much purpose and meaning, even if it's not my music, notes from other people's songs, like, Elton John songs and so many other songs have had such one little paragraph of their words kind of goes, yeah, I get that. And so, yeah, music's been healing my heart forever, and it soothes my mind, and I can't see a world without music for myself. So music has been a big part of my life, and does that pay the bills? Well, we're kind of getting to the point of that, but then one has to ask themselves, how do you define success in music? And there's a lot of different ways of doing that. For me, personal success has been able to create compositions by myself with no scientific tools. But you can science out success too. And some of these journeys I've had with Rick and others, I've seen formulas and how people apply them. I wish I would know how to do that for me, because for me it's just been a heart venture, which maybe takes more time. And, but to give you a couple examples, sometimes people say that it's not always the most talented that succeed, but the most determined. So then I go, can I apply that to my life? And why I'm bringing this up is because everybody's got their own journey. So this might apply to you, might not. But when I look about, am I determined? Well, I don't think so. I'm probably more lazy than determined. But again, it was the love of creating that made me do that. It wasn't determination. It was just love of creating. And I ended up with a product of that. Was I the most talented? Obviously not. I'm not talented at all. I just love playing. And then I look at, some of the competitions I did where I won. And should I have won? Well, these top 3 competitions were the 3 main ones on the planet, and they're subjective. So the good news is that while there was no finish line to cross, you had to win the opinions of all these different judges to be winning, right? And so could you science that out? I kind of go, well, if I used one of Rick's models that he told me about when he was playing sport, was a thing called circles of excellence. And so applied to my genre, what would be the circles of excellence? Well, one circle would be being mentally prepared, the other would be being physically prepared, and the third would be in having your equipment 100% prepared. And you have to apply 100% discipline in all those 3 areas to work at being successful or winning, right? I wish I could have scienced this out by that time, but once again, it was all done from heart. So the end of the day, how this works, how this could look is that sometimes it can appear that when you've won, when you've actually lost. Or there's times when it can appear that you've lost when you've actually won. So for me, it's always been the journey of this, and it takes longer. So all the competitions I won, I walked on the stage, only had this, and pushed it out and won. And it took me a long time to evaluate, like, wow, I'm with all these other guys and they're better players. And I know they're better players because I sit and I talk with them before the competition. They can better techniques, they're smarter, they know notes, they know their stuff, but I beat them. And it took me a long time to realize why the judges might have picked me. And it got quite simple, actually, and it allowed me to feel better about winning these competitions. And again, I don't think I'm the best at anything. I just love what I'm doing. And if this can resonate with somebody or just make somebody feel better about the situation they're in, I hope it reaches you. But it got down to me that where I could justify these wins by going, well, when I think of Willie Nelson, is he the best singer on the planet? And I go, nope. But people love him and his character. It just gets down simply to that. Whatever I put out, the judges liked, and they liked it better than the virtuosic other players. So, again, there's so many paths in this life and so many variations. And I think for me, it's just trying to find some way of, not believing in yourself, because I've had a hard time believing in myself. It's just loving something and just kind of keep doing it. And it might lead to nowhere, but it's definitely going to work with your heart in some sort of way. And that's, you have to love you for you, right? And I think that's part of the process of getting there, is just finding something that does that. So.
For dinner tonight, stuck on this road, trying to make things right, and still I roll on down this long winding road, every mile and every day, every night and every way, still I roll long lost down this crazy road. Still all I find, a place I can't call my own. And still all I find now is a long, lonely road. After all these years, after all these years, well, I can't understand why every last place seems like another mile of wear and tear upon this face. And still I roll on down this long winding road, every mile and every day, and every night and every way. Still I roll on now, long lost down this crazy road. Every mile I find a place I can't call my own. And still all I find now is a long, lonely road. After all these years, after all these years, all these